China, a place that is known for its unique architecture, great food, and that Made in China sign on literally everything you own. But how do we get here? Well, civilization started along the Yellow River, and just like the Tigris and Euphrates rivers were to Mesopotamia and the Nile River was to ancient Egypt, it was where the Shang dynasty could start. The Shang dynasty started in 16,000 BC and was ruled by kings. Their social classes had the slaves at the bottom with little to no freedom, then farmers, traders, artisans, who were people who made things, nobles, people who owned land, and at the top were the king and his clan. The Shang dynasty had a writing system and used bronze for tools and weapons, but after hundreds of years, the Shang dynasty would fall due to constant wars, spending too much money on palaces and tombs, and the corruption of the elite class, and the Zhou dynasty would conquer the Shang dynasty and rule China. The Zhou ruled China for 800 years, which is the longest dynasty, and claimed the Mandate of Heaven, which is basically when an emperor or king calls dibs on heaven because they believe the gods would bless them to rule, but they can lose it if they become unworthy, like it was Thor's hammer. In the dynasty, they wanted to learn from the Shang dynasty's mistakes, which was ruling terribly. So the kings used a system called city-states and basically gave them to relatives like it was Oprah.
Open your box. 2, 3.
City-state. 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 City-state.
City-states are basically mini countries that were independent, governed by themselves, and had their own army. Sadly, this would be the death of the Zhou dynasty, as lords of the city-states would have more power than the king and started wars against each other and ending the Zhou dynasty. Even though the Zhou dynasty died, it did come with some benefits, like roads, expanded trade, creating cavalries or warriors on horseback, an iron plow, and a weapon called the crossbow, and irrigation and flood control systems. After the Zhou dynasty died, it was conquered by the Qin dynasty, which claimed the Mandate of Heaven, and as you can see, there seems to be a pattern where a dynasty would claim the Mandate of Heaven and will prosper for many years and then become corrupt or problems would emerge and the dynasty would lose the Mandate of Heaven and a new dynasty would appear. This is called the dynastic cycle and would occur to many dynasties later on. In the Qin dynasty, instead of having kings rule over China, they would have emperors, and this would continue on for many centuries. The way the land was organized was by military districts, where each district would have one official. The Qin dynasty were mostly known for creating a universal system for coins, writing, and law code in all of China. The Qin dynasty was also known for the terracotta warriors, which were made so when the emperor died, there would be an army to protect him in the afterlife. They also started construction on the famous Great Wall of China, which was used to protect them from the north. It took many years to build and stretched over 13,000 miles. To keep order in China, the Qin dynasty had strict laws, landowners were taxed, and only the educated men can become officials. This would be called legalism, and it was a philosophy that rejected Confucianism and had strict laws and punishments. This led to Confucianism works to be outlawed and books would be burned. Most of the people ruled by the Qin dynasty saw the emperor as a tyrant because peasants had to work a lot, scholars were mad because of the book burnings, and the noble had lost their power. Luckily though, the Qin dynasty wouldn't last, and after about 400 years, the Qin dynasty would lose the Mandate of Heaven and the Han dynasty would start and claim it. The Han dynasty would start in the year 206 BC, but had its peak in 147 through 87 BC. This dynasty would be known for the famous Silk Road, which was a trade route that connected the east to the west. This would be how Buddhism would be spread across China and would become one of the biggest religions in China. In this dynasty, a time of peace and prosperity would occur, called the Pax Sinica. In the Pax Sinica, Confucianism would start again, and actually talented and smart people would have been appointed government jobs. Also, to prevent hunger from happening, China would source some of its food from harvests and would use it when the harvests were bad. During this time, there would be many advances like better roadways, new canals, better ways to fertilize crops, complex irrigation systems, and veterinarian medicine. They also invented silk, paper, gunpowder, wheelbarrows, printed books, suspension bridges, compasses, and iron drill bits. Sadly though, after about 200 years, the Han dynasty would soon fall apart in 220 AD and would mark the end of ancient China. In conclusion of this video, I have shown you the beginnings of ancient China, starting from the humble beginnings of the Shang in the Yellow River to the glorious Han Dynasty. And yet, if I were to go in a time machine and live among these innovative civilizations of ancient China, would I recommend you to visit? And my answer would be yes. But in my opinion, I would visit the Han Dynasty, as it is where culture will bloom and innovations will be everywhere you look.